Today, we're diving into two of the world's very first great urban civilizations, the Harappan Civilization in the Indus Valley and the Mesopotamian, right there between the Tigris and Euphrates. Now, what's so fascinating is that they popped up around the same time, but they came up with two totally different answers to one of the biggest questions in human history.
I mean, really think about that for a second. There's no instruction manual. You've got to figure out how to organize thousands of people, how to manage food and water, and how to create a society that can actually last for centuries. These folks were literally starting with a blank slate.
And the answers they came up with couldn't be more different. The Harappans, well, they went with what we're calling Blueprint A civic model. It's all about public health, order, and the well-being of the many. Mesopotamia, on the other hand, went for Blueprint B, a theocratic model, totally centered on the power of gods and their kings. These weren't just two cities. They were two completely different visions for what society should even be.
And you can see these competing blueprints in the most obvious place you can imagine, the actual layout of their cities. One looks like a neat and tidy grid, the other is a sprawling maze. And believe it or not, that one single difference tells us almost everything we need to know about them.
Okay, so first, the Harappan cities. They are an absolute marvel of urban planning. We're talking about cities like Mohenjo-Daro being built on a super strict grid. The major streets, some of them 30 feet wide, run in perfect north-south and east-west lines. This wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate, master plan design that prioritized efficiency and order before a single person ever moved in.
Now, flip over to Mesopotamia, and it's the total opposite. Cities like just grew. They expanded organically over hundreds of years. At the very heart of the city, you had the massive temple, the ziggurat, and everything else just sort of spiraled out from there. The streets were winding, narrow, and confusing, a real maze. This was the result of centuries of unplanned growth, not some grand design.
And when you put them side by side like this, their core philosophies just jump out at you, don't they? In Harappa, you see clear zoning, a citadel for public buildings, a lower town for everybody else. In Mesopotamia, where you lived was a direct statement about your social status, based on how close you were to the temple. And look at the public works. The Harappans built a great bath, probably for public rituals, while Mesopotamia built enormous palaces and ziggurats for the gods and the elites.
And we have to talk about the sanitation, because this is where the Harappans are just on another level. Nearly every single house in Mohenjo-Daro had its own bathroom, and it was connected to a citywide covered sewer system. This focus on public health was thousands of years ahead of its time. Seriously, nobody would match this level of urban hygiene until the Romans came along. It was a system built for everyone. So, you have to ask, right? These incredibly different cities must have been led by incredibly different kinds of rulers. And the contrast in who was calling the shots is maybe the most mind-blowing part of this whole story. Because here's the thing. This is one of the greatest mysteries in all of archaeology. When experts go looking for the kings and queens of the Indus Valley, they find, well, pretty much nothing.
Just think about it. In ancient Egypt, you've got the pyramids. In Mesopotamia, you find giant palaces and massive statues of kings. But in the huge, sophisticated cities of the Indus Valley, we haven't found any definitive palaces. There are no royal burials stuffed with gold and jewels. There are no monuments built to make some ruler look good. All the classic signs of a powerful king are just gone.
Meanwhile, over in Mesopotamia, the power structure was crystal clear. You had the priest-king. His authority was absolute, seen as a direct line to the gods. He was the general, the chief administrator, the head priest, the whole shebang. Eventually, they'd even start claiming the king himself was a god. No ambiguity there at all. So the leading theory for the Harappans is that they just skipped the whole king thing. Instead of a monarchy, they might have been governed by a committee, a council of powerful merchants, priests, and heads of important families who all ruled together. This points to a system based on group consensus, not on the commands of a single person.
Okay, so these totally opposite political systems ended up creating two very, very different kinds of societies. The way power was structured at the top had a direct impact on how everybody, from the richest to the poorest, lived their daily lives.
The contrast is just stark. Mesopotamia had a super rigid class system. You had nobles, commoners, and slaves, and that was that. Wealth was meant to be shown off in giant palaces and temples. In Harappa, the social ladder seems to have been a lot shorter, with resources going into public infrastructure that everyone could use. In a Mesopotamian city, you knew exactly where you fit in. The elites lived in big, fancy houses made of expensive baked brick, right near the temple complex. The farther away from the center you lived, the lower your status. The city itself was basically a physical map of the social hierarchy. But the Harappan ruins tell a very different story, one that looks a lot more equal. Sure, some houses were bigger than others, but most people lived in pretty well-built homes, and almost everyone had access to that incredible sanitation system. It really suggests a society that was less worried about huge gaps between rich and poor, and more focused on a decent standard of living for everyone. But here's a fascinating twist, and it shows that these comparisons are never black and white. In that super hierarchical Mesopotamian society, women actually had a surprising amount of rights. They could own property, run their own businesses, and even represent themselves in legal cases. But in the seemingly more equal Harappan society, the evidence we have suggests it was actually more patriarchal, with fewer freedoms for women. It's a powerful reminder that a society focused on public good doesn't always mean equality for everyone in private life. So, as we wrap this up, what we're left with are two powerful, completely distinct models for how to organize a huge society for the very first time. Two completely different paths to civilization. I think this quote just nails it. It perfectly captures the core difference, right? The Harappans built their society from the ground up, thinking about the needs of the whole community. Mesopotamia built theirs from the top down, focused on the power of the king and the glory of the gods. And you can see that in the legacies they left behind. From the Harappans, we get this incredible model for public health, for sanitation, and for smart urban planning that's still relevant today. From Mesopotamia, we get the model for the centralized state, for written legal codes like Hammurabi's, and for massive architecture designed to inspire awe and obedience. So that leaves us with one last question to think about. Look around your own city, your own town. Do you see the legacy of that orderly, clean, civic-minded Harappan grid? Or do you see the influence of the Mesopotamian model, with its monumental centers of power and organically grown neighborhoods? The truth is, both of these ancient blueprints are still quietly shaping the world we live in right now.